everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love, two that we love and that we think you should read. When, Brad?
Right now. It's gonna be good.
Right this minute. I love it. How are you, my friend? You've been doing
I'm
some
good.
reading?
I'm gonna start practicing my intro moves when not in front of you, because I kind of like that Running Man one, but I feel like I need to perfect it a little bit.
I love it. It's my favorite part of the show. One of them.
I love it too. Mm-hmm. So, big news in the reading world.
Let's hear it.
Have you heard? It's a big week for readers.
Tell me all about it.
Happy birthday to you. Thinking of you, my friends, sending positive book sprinkles your way.
That is so sweet. And that might be my first official like birthday wish. So thank you so much. Not till Thursday, but I appreciate it. I'll take all the cupcakes I can get at this point.
Nice. Ditto on that one. I'm with you. Cool. And on to other book news. I have a book to share. Can I go there? And now I have an amazing bookmark too. So I read a friend and colleague recommended this one, and it is for anyone who likes to tell stories. So this is, I could call it an adult read, but high school kiddos I think would get a lot out of this too. But when I first heard about it, I kind of marked it on my list of to be read. And then the more I thought about it, I just kept coming back to it. So I'm so glad. It's actually one of my favorite books I've ever read. And it's by, so I'll just get rid of the mystique here. It's by Matthew Dix. And if you can see right here, if you're like, who's he? Although you might know who he is. There's this thing I had never heard about. There's storytelling competitions at this thing called The Moth, and you can Google YouTube videos of it and actually see some of his are online, some are other people's, but he's won. There's 10 stories a night. They draw them randomly out of a hat. So if you want to go to these clubs, you put your name in a hat. You don't know if they'll pick it. And he's won 36 of those, but he's also won 5 Grand Slam competitions at the Moth. So all that to say, he's a good storyteller, and other people think he's a good storyteller, and he was willing to try to break apart how he tells stories. And I was just eating this up because I like to geek out on lots of different things, and just hearing all like he would tell a story in this book, Storyworthy, and then he would do some teaching and kind of say, see what I did there, here's what I call this, and here's how I used it. And then he'll circle back to that story. He tells lots of stories in the book, but he'll circle back to some of the same stories when he introduces new elements and say, oh, and by the way, when you read that story earlier, I was also doing this, and he'll unpack that. And it was just so cool. Have you heard of this before?
I haven't, but I'm so intrigued. I want to read it so badly now.
It's so fun. And I think for anyone, whether you're titling presentations or communicating via newsletter, I mean, honestly, there were so many applicable things. Like here's a little teeny thing. When you share lists of 3, whether you're telling a story, oftentimes my lists are all 3 kind of the same words, like whatever, innovation, learning, and creativity or something like that. But he said it's very powerful. And I forget if this was connected to humor or unexpected, but you have 2 words, but then place an unlike word. And I didn't have any of this prepared. So it would be like innovation, creativity, and falling on your face when you don't know what to do. I just made that up. But you see, because it does something to the brain. So he unpacks all these things, but he weaves them in just really engaging stories. And he also, here's what I also loved, because I was kind of like, I don't know if I could ever tell a story, because some of the stuff he tells is really spectacular and like that could never happen to me type stuff. But he also shares, how do you talk about small moments? And then how do you build a story from that small moment? So anyway, I loved it. So if you like telling stories, I highly recommend this book, Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. All throughout, Jen, he shares, he points you to his YouTube channel just to say, if you want to hear this story, check it out. I didn't listen to any of them until I was done. So then I kind of had the icing on the cake after reading the book. I got to go and actually hear his voice and hear the stories as he told them and see who he was. It was really cool.
How neat. Back in the day when I was in library school, like 100 years ago or so, one of the requirements for a children's lit course that I took was to go to the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, which was like just over the border between North Carolina and Tennessee, and a several hour drive for me. And my husband and I went. And oh my gosh, it was one of the most, I had the most fun at this event. I'd never heard of it before, but it sounds a lot like what you're talking about with this moth competition, where these like professional storytellers, it was all outdoors, would get up under this tent in the mountains of Tennessee and like tell these stories to hundreds of people. And they were so captivating and so well done that one of the things that made me want to do when I first became a librarian was do storytelling lessons with kiddos. And I love, like, you talking about this book just like recalls all of that for me and how much fun that is. And I think how much kids get out of it from like a confidence building and a public speaking standpoint without the like pressure of public speaking,
Yes.
It's like, you know what I mean? Like you just reframe the conversation a little bit and it becomes less daunting because we're all storytellers, like we all tell each other stories. So I just think I'm fascinated by that book and I can't wait to read it now.
Oh, and I think so for anyone like ourselves, yourself, who just loves books and stories in general, it gives me a deeper, enhances my appreciation for what I'm reading too, because I can kind of notice some things he talks about in here from character transformation and stuff. I didn't like that example I gave you a second ago with the series of 3. So let me give you another 10-second example.
Okay.
A better technique from the book. It's called the hourglass. And it's what you slow time down right at the pinnacle of the audience's anticipation. And he shared how he did it in the story. And of course, when you just read a story cold, you're like, wow, that's good. That's engaging. But then when he says, see what I did there, when your brain, when you needed to know most what I was about to say, I stopped and told you about blah, 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 blah.
Right.
That really made you want it even more. It's just fascinating to hear him teach about that. It was so fun on many levels.
Oh, I love that because I feel like it adds another layer to your enjoyment because you can love and enjoy and respond to the story just as the listener. But then when you understand the craft of it a little bit, then it helps you appreciate it on a whole different level, which I just love. I geek out of that over that stuff. So that sounds fun. Show me the cover one more time.
And I did go, so after I read it, then I took a story that I don't think I'd ever told before, and I just developed it in writing, and I've just been having fun practicing and trying it and rereading it and making sure I'm trying each of his aspects. And he made it clear you don't have to do everything in every story,
right?
But I'm trying to. So.
Oh, I love it. That's so much fun. Oh, that's great. We have 2 sort of unique books to share today because that is like a book I've never heard of another book quite like that. So that's really exciting. Whereas I'm going to share a picture book today that I read a while back, but that I have been thinking about a lot recently and realized I hadn't shared it on this show. So I wanted to bring it out today. And it's one that I'm guessing maybe you have heard of, or I'm sure our 3.5 viewers have, and that's the Year We Learned to Fly. And it's by Jacqueline, Woodson, and Rafael López. And if the cover looks familiar, then it's very similar to a book that they wrote a couple years back that I remember book talking on this show when it came out, called The Day You Begin, which was about like this kind of the day you begin to believe and accept yourself for who you are and understand that your differences are what make you special, then that's when you sort of like take control of your own power, right? So this book is sort of a similar theme, and I want to show a couple of or at least one of the beautiful illustrations later, but it's about a brother and sister, and I think it's so masterfully done, Brad, because throughout the first opening spreads, we see that the 2 kids are kind of trapped inside and feeling alone, but the real reasons for that are not really mentioned. So it's like during a time like the last 2 years when we have a pandemic, when kids maybe aren't going to school in the same ways they used to, or they feel suddenly where they can't visit their friends or their family members in the same ways that they used to, that feeling of being alone or feeling sort of trapped in a space. Kids can relate to that without this book being about the pandemic. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's really sort of genius the way that they've done it, because it opens it up to all sorts of experiences. But these two kids being trapped in those feelings, being like influenced by those feelings, they exhibit themselves in different ways, from feeling frightened to being like squirrely and ornery and fighting with each other, and all sorts of behaviors result from these feelings of feeling sort of trapped and alone and stuff. And their grandmother says to them in every instance, use your beautiful and brilliant minds to fly and think about the places that you want to go, to imagine the things that you want to see, to dream of the world that you want to be out there. Because there's other people who are really trapped and alone, who have had it worse than you have. You all have the benefit of your beautiful minds. And they think about every time that they're feeling trapped and alone, that they start to imagine what they could see instead if they just lifted their arms and began to fly. And then there's this scene that, to me, I mean, the whole book, that beginning of the book is fun and kids can relate to it. But then there's a pivot point in the book. There's like a moment, and I wonder what your storytelling mentor would say about this particular section, where, and this is the part I want to show you. I'm going to read it to you first, and I want to show you these amazing.
Jen, you're doing the hourglass technique. I'm at the height of my anticipation. I want to know, and you slowed it down a teeny bit. So that you're
not
amazing.
Even knowing.
You're a natural storyteller.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I want to read this section to you, and I'm going to show you the illustration. This, to me, was such a pivot point in the book, and a really important one, right? At one point, the two kids are sort of alone in their bedroom, and they're feeling frightened, and we don't really know why. But rather than grandma coming in and talking to them, for the first time, they remember grandma's words, and they start to do what she has advised without her having to be there to tell them. And then on the next page, the text reads, "My grandmother had learned to fly from the people who came before. They were aunts and uncles and cousins who were brought here on huge ships, their wrists and ankles cuffed in iron. But my grandmother said, nobody can ever cuff your beautiful and brilliant mind." And then I want you to look at this like gorgeous illustration. And then it goes on to the next page there, where we see the chains being broken. And then from there, the kids start to experience some big changes in their life. And it's really about how they use the words of their grandmother to help them get through them. But I love this book so much because it was so empowering. Like, it really was about thinking about what other people have gone through, and recognizing that that shouldn't make you feel ashamed for feeling bad, but should make you feel empowered, because you do have the ability to do something about these feelings. And sometimes it's all about just using that beautiful and brilliant mind. Anyway, I loved it so much. It's called The Year We Learned to Fly, and it's by Jacqueline, Woodson, and Rafael López. And I think you should read it right now.
Thanks, Jen. Was that the author illustrator combo or team from the previous book?
Yes, same one.
Okay.
Okay. So when you look at the books, in fact, there's this cute scene. Let me show you. When the kids are alone in their room and they're nervous, I want to show you this. I got such a kick out of this, because there they are. Look at what book they're reading. They're reading the previous book by the author and illustrator. I love little nods like that. But look how gorgeous those illustrations are. I mean, that's just beautiful. The illustrations are really lovely. And Jacqueline Woodson is a genius. I read everything that she publishes. And so it's just fun to see her in a picture book.
Awesome. Usually at this point in the show, I think we try to steer people to our website, our spreadsheet that tracks all the books we've talked about. I wonder if we could steer people in a different direction this time.
Okay.
I believe our good friend, who we talk about lots of different shows,
Yes.
has a virtual book launch this week that would be really cool for people to go to. Do you want to tell people about that? You cool with that?
Sure. You can find this virtual book launch either by checking out my Twitter feed or Brad's, or go to the Twitter feed or the website of Bookalicious, because they're hosting a book launch free. It's totally free for John Shu and Veronica Jameson's new book, This is a School, which is out today, but their book launch is going to be on Thursday, March 31st. I don't remember the time, but I know that it's free to register. I'm not sure if it'll be recorded, so it might be the kind of thing that you really have to go to and watch, but I know that it'll be just however long it is, every single second will be full of joy. So you should check it out if you have the chance.
Well done. Yep, highly recommended. I think it's in the evening I saw, and I was poking around and looking at it. I'm like, that sounds amazing. Plus, just knowing John and seeing how beautiful the art in it from Veronica is in that book, it's just I think going to be a must attend event. So thanks for rolling with that pivot, Jen. Happy birthday again to you. You're amazing as well.
Oh, thank you, my friend. And thank you to our 3.5 viewers. I look forward to chatting books next week. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody. Happy reading.